Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Following the air crash, Vice President Professor Shimbajo was involved in on Saturday. A charter service company coveting helicopters. The owners of the chopper have attributed unusual weather conditions as a cause of the crash. Now, several concerns have been raised over the decision by the government to fly the Vice President on a private aircraft as opposed to the official aircraft from the presidential fleet, especially during this election period. Now, joining us to speak on this and several other security matters in relation to the elections is security expert and former assistant director at the State Security Service, the SSS, Dennis Amachree. Welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Now, let's start by asking you very simply, how safe or otherwise are helicopters, and what is the propensity for mishaps?
Well, it has been proven that air travel actually is the safest, more safer than road transport or even sea. So, of course, we used to have these once in a while crashes and stuff like that, either due to a human or mechanical, failures. But yeah, it's still the safest means of travel.
What is the standard procedure for the vice president of a country such as Nigeria, to travel by air? I mean, there's the argument as to why he was on a private chopper and not one from the government fleet.
Well, I really don't. Well, let me put it this way. If you're on campaigns, it's supposed to be seen as a private situation whereby you don't use taxpayers' money to do the campaigns. The first time I heard about him flying the Caverton helicopter, I was thinking maybe it could have been some kind of campaign contribution in kind, where he can use the plane. But usually, using official planes are used for official duties, not for private. And campaigns are seen as private. Yeah.
So what does this crash, just 2 weeks to the election, what does this mean, this type of crash mean to?
Well, we cannot control nature. We don't know what really happened. The Accident Investigation Board is going into it right now. So by the time they come up, in a couple of days' time, they should be coming out with something. And you know, investigations like this are not actually an investigation to apportion blame to anybody. It's actually to, just like in the oil industry, you do investigations in health, safety, and environment situations just to find out what was wrong and then correct it so that it doesn't happen again.
And what are the implications or repercussions had this for the country? Had the accident resulted in fatality?
Then all of us will be mourning. You should know the security implications, you know, a lot of security implications.
Would we go ahead with the election?
That's what I can't tell you because I'm not a prophet or something like that, but it's really going to change a lot of things.
Exactly.
And of course, there will be a lot of conspiracy theories that are going to come into play. But thank God that no life was lost. And of course, everybody came out very safe.
Well, you mentioned conspiracy theories. Back in June 2018,
yes,
the vice president's plane, helicopter, also had to make an emergency landing. And then we saw over the weekend what happened. Do you understand why some people would think that this is more than a coincidence? That's one. Let me also ask you about the investigations.
Okay.
The presidency says investigation is ongoing. The owners of the chopper have also said, despite bringing this to weather, they're also investigating. How long should this investigation take? And should it be made public to the Nigerian people?
AIB investigations are made public. Well, let me give it 2 weeks. We should be able to get the preliminary stuff there. I don't know. He was involved in an emergency landing the last year. And now and again, remember that there are two helicopters that actually landed there. And the first one landed safely, and then he came in, and then that one had the accident. So I don't know. I don't want to believe in conspiracy theories. Let the investigation tell us what actually happened.
But as a security expert,
Yes.
I know that you must have witnessed some of these types of crashes.
Of course.
In your opinion, would you say it was purely an accident?
It's purely an accident. You know, we know of situations in the Western world where certain manipulations of mechanical equipment are being done for certain reasons. But I don't think we've gone to that extreme level of having somebody messing around with, you know, the plane one way or the other.
And saying categorically that it was an accident, what precautionary measures should be taken when flying choppers?
One thing about choppers, and that is something that I was asking some of my colleagues, before you use a chopper, it's not like an aeroplane, like a commercial airline. Before you use a chopper, usually there is this underwater survival course that you take. You know, we're even lucky that this is on land, because if it was on water, we might have casualties, because I don't think they went through the underwater training. And usually some helicopter companies will say, okay, yeah, they are VIPs, let's just give them a little brief and let them go in. But in the oil industry, for instance, it's very, very, very serious. You must undergo it, otherwise you don't go and get into a helicopter, because they are flying over a large mass of water, and if any crash happens, you should be able to unleash yourself from your seatbelt and come out. But in this particular one, it was on land, and thank God, no casualties.
Being on land, wouldn't it have been more impactful?
No, the thing is that if it's on land, at least everybody knows where everybody is.
Okay.
In water, many people don't know how to swim, and then many people are disoriented if a plane is submerged underwater.
And just before I move to other things, very quickly, what is the procedure in informing the presidency, or the president, for instance, in this situation, security-wise, that the #2 man in command has been involved in an accident such as this? Because there are those who question the timing in which the president responded, or the presidency responded in a statement to this situation. How long should it take, and what's the procedure?
It should take immediately. You know, if something happens to the president or even the vice president, in this case, as in this case, the first thing the CSO will do is to call the principal and tell him that, see, this is the situation we're in.
Even though investigations need to be done, what sort of statement should the president be releasing if it's immediate? I think that's what I want to clear, because some argue that, you know, investigations are going and the president cannot come out to make a statement. Is that correct?
There is no need for a statement. Let the investigation go on. What's the objective? The objective basically is to find out what happened. So until we find out that, there's no need for any kind of statements to be made.
All right. So how would you rate the safety of our nation's leaders, especially at this critical time of heightened political activities?
I know that you have elections coming up, and people are actually on the streets campaigning. The major political parties, both opposition and the main ones in government, are being protected by the State Security Service. You know, they actually detail some people to go with them, because they are actually going through a dangerous path at this time. They could go into a stadium or anywhere and be attacked. So you keep people for their protection. So it's a very dangerous period, and personal security and security of those entourage is supposed to be very, very key. Sometimes it skips my mind when I see large crowds in stadiums,
Right.
and then you find the VIP going through them. It's a very, very critical moment. And I know for those people who are doing close protection, will be having serious headaches, trying to cover that kind of situation.
This coveting helicopter company, Agusta AW139, that's that they were carrying the #2 citizen of Nigeria.
Yeah, like we've earlier said, any aircraft that goes out into the air is certified to fly by NAMA, National Aviation Management Authority, and ICAO. So it's a situation where I believe, because without certification, they can't even move out of the runway. So I believe strongly that they are certified to go out. And if they are carrying the VIP just like any other person, they're supposed to have a safety check, which is okay for them to go and come back.
Well, we have seen political rallies witness a breakdown of law and order in recent times. We've seen Lagos, we've seen Kwara State, and some other states. Do these breakdown of law and order, this crime and criminality we're seeing at political rallies, have a bearing on the elections proper? And in a larger way, are we ready for this election security-wise?
Well, I know that the police, the State Security Service, even the NSCDC have been going through some kind of training against the coming election. And we believe strongly that it's going to be violent-free, but we're worried about the post-election period. Pre-election period, yes, like you mentioned, there are some areas where crazy guys will go out and start causing problems. But if all the plans are put together, and INEC is very, very serious, the important part of it is to make sure that INEC is impartial. And it is the impartiality, if it happens, that causes a lot of violence. So if they are impartial and they keep to the rules, with the help of the security forces, I think we should be able to have a violence-free election.
But we have seen different calls or alarms and allegations raised in recent times by the sitting government. We've also seen concerns raised by, for instance, the former president, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, all talking about security concerns, and not just post-election,
yes,
but even during the elections, pre and during the elections.
Yes, yes. Some of these calls and observations that are being made by people, I think sometimes are purposely made to preempt any action that could come in front, There's a lot of fake news we have right now. And the fake news are taking over the whole scenario, whereby people are very gullible in consuming this fake news.
Are you saying the Minister of Culture and Information who raised an alarm is spreading fake news? He did say there are concerns.
Well, you have to understand something about fake news. Non-state actors and even state actors involved in fake news. We call it fake news right now. Before it was called propaganda. And propaganda are something that people use. Remember the 2014 elections, the one that brought this government into power. A lot of it was used, propaganda. So it is something that is out of hand now, because everybody now uses it, where things will, you put something out there and then it goes viral. And then a lot of people, like I said, are gullible, and they start believing these things without even cross-checking the facts. So it's a situation where I call it a threat. I call it a security threat right now. It's a security threat to the country, where fake news are, bandied around, by everybody, by everybody. You see it coming from all angles, and the ability, because everybody wants to convince the public, vote for my person, vote for me, or vote for this party or that party, and then they throw in those, spices of fake news, and people continue to believe.
Let's try and understand this a bit more now. Going into the elections,
Yes.
what security apparatus should be deployed, for the elections?
What you mean, which security agency
Yes.
or
yeah.
which
apparatus? Should it be the police? Should it be the army?
Well, police is the fundamental or primary security agency that is supposed to be responsible for the elections. Supported by the State Security Service, which will go ahead and maybe give intelligence information or other kinds of support that they might need in doing what they have to do. Of course, in Nigeria, we've come to see the military even participating, and civil defense. So for actual security plans, these other agencies are supposed to, even the police are not supposed to be at the polling booth. They are supposed to be in the periphery on standby.
Okay.
If there is any problem, they could be called in to take care of it. What is the threat right now? The major threat that we face before was snatching of ballot boxes. But that is gone. People don't snatch ballot boxes anymore. They do other means of rigging and either buying of votes, which has been going on for a long time, even before the election. That has been going on. And then during the election also, So the security agencies are there to see if they could, capture any of these irregularities and stop it. So I think if they follow their security plan very well, we should be able to have a free and fair. Well, we have to have a violence-free election.
You just mentioned the military as well. Should the electoral process be militarized?
Not at all. I think it's an abuse of the military. The military is supposed to be out of internal security. They should be responsible for the periphery of the country where the word of external aggression, But in our Nigerian society now, we've brought them in. The police is thinly spread. There are very, very few. And then we've brought in the military, and the military is now also partaking in all kinds of internal security issues. Meanwhile, we have a war going on in the Northeast. So I think the commanders of our security forces have to re-strategize.
So what do you make of the Operation Python Dance 3 ongoing? I mean, just in Sokoto, they arrested political thugs ahead of the election. What is your assessment of the Python Dance? You don't see it as necessary?
Well, it is necessary because they are actually out there to support the police. Like I said, it's police duty for internal security. And when we bring in the military to do internal security or do police job, it is not very, very well. It's not of international standard to see that happen. But now that they are there, they've been able to arrest certain people, hand them over to the police, and stuff like that. But again, it worries the ordinary citizen where he feels very insecure, where you have soldiers with guns running around the whole place. So there is pros and cons for this engagement where we have military, coming into the streets. But at the same time, I would suggest that they increase the police capacity and capabilities in doing their job.
What are some of the cons of having the military?
Well, they are helping. They are. Yeah, but they are helping. But the cons is where the military is not trained to deal with civilians very, very directly and very, very well. The relationship with military and civilians very, very bad. Whereby They see you as a bloody civilian. I'm sure you've heard that expression. They see you as bloody civilian, and that means that they have signed to die.
Right.
And you, who is an ordinary civilian, has been talking to them anyhow, and they want to deal with you because they feel that they can spill your blood too. It's not a very good relationship. Okay. I think they should leave it for the police to do.
All right. Well, just recently we heard about the allegations plans by the police force to deploy about 2,000 officers to fight Boko Haram, just as we see the army doing the job of the police officers.
Yes.
Is this an acceptable rationale? You know?
You see, that's why I said that they should go back to the drawing board, because army is doing police duties, police now going back to do army duties. I know that they have a responsibility in war zones. Police do, okay?
They do.
Yes, they do. Because, like, for instance, we're fighting Boko Haram. If they take off a village, the military will go in there, attack, dislodge the militants in a certain village,
Okay.
and then secure it. Then the police moves in and take over. That's the work of the police, to bring law and order, enforce laws there. And then the military moves on.
Okay.
But in this particular situation, they are actually fighting, and they go in there and they take over. Sometimes they are being attacked, and then we will go back and forth. So we have to re-strategize and see whose responsibility is whose.
What is your assessment of border security going into this election? Recently, we've seen government officials and citizens from neighboring countries participate in campaigns in Nigeria. When you heard and saw that, what came to mind?
It's very, very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate. It's a manifestation of the worries that we've had in this country. Excuse me. So it's unfortunate in the sense that our borders are so porous, and we've not been able to take care of them. If you go to a place like Maradi in Jigawa State, up north, between Kano and Maradi, Jigawa, you find out that the traffic in between is very, very, it's up and down. If you go to a place like Meduguri, where there's a place where the bedroom is in Nigeria and the living room is in Cameroon.
Wow.
And that is a crazy one. So it is a situation where we have to do proper border security. We want to reorder, how people enter the country and go out of the country. When you have those convoys of cars coming into Nigeria to attend a political rally, I don't think it's a very, very good. It doesn't say much about our security. It reminds me of where you have Venezuelans and Guatemalans trying to enter the United States, and then President Trump is trying to build a wall to stop them, But at least they are doing something about it. And then we also have to do something about our own, because it's a free-for-all right now. Yeah. And if we don't do anything about it, we cannot be sure who is actually voting. Our PVCs are not for Nigerian citizens alone. You have people coming from Benin Republic who are in Nigeria having PVCs. And you have people from the north and people from Cameroon and stuff like that all in here.
Do you have proof of that?
Yeah, and is that because
the thing is that,
resident in Nigeria?
If they do a serious investigation, they will find out that some people holding our PVCs are not Nigerians.
What does that say of the election? Because INEC keeps reiterating it is going to prosecute a credible, free and fair elections for Nigerians. And the claims of underage voters, the claim of foreigners voting in the elections, they disclaim repeatedly.
We have seen pictures of, underage people, waiting in line to vote. We've seen a situation where people have been talking. That is something that we have to investigate and find out results. But there are people, teachers from Ghana who have been here for so long, and many people believe they are Nigerians and they've already got PVCs, to vote. It is not new that people in Benin Republic are, having PVCs in Nigeria, because you see, you have to understand that the borders, imaginary borders that were drawn through the Yoruba tribe, and some of them are Yorubas living there, and when they cross the border, they speak Yoruba, they feel that they are Nigerians, and how are you going to really stop that,
Where do you draw the line?
Where do you draw the line? Where somebody who is a minister, there's a minister in Benin Republic who is a Yoruba guy. His first and last name are Yoruba. So if he comes into Nigeria and he says that he wants a PVC, he goes in there, a local government chairman will recognize him as, oh yeah, he lives there. And then, in fact, we don't do that anymore. We don't go to local governments to clarify that whether we are citizens here or not. We just go there, we register, we fill out the form, and they give you a PVC. So it is a situation we have to look at. It's a serious security problem where foreigners have access into our country.
Well, recently in Kenya, talking about this security situation in Nigeria, in Kenya, we had terrorists open fire and attack innocent citizens in a shopping mall, and we saw the response of the government that within days, the attackers were apprehended, their co-conspirators were apprehended, their family members were fished out, and in Nigeria, we find it difficult to even investigate, let alone find any solution to simple matters of people like Alex Bade, for instance. Till date, we don't know who his perpetrators, who his assassinators are.
Yes, there's an internal Nigerian problem that we have.
It's a security problem.
It's a security problem, internal security Nigerian problem that we have. I remember when this is the second attack in Nairobi. In fact, I used to work in Nairobi, and during the first attack, I was actually in Nairobi, Westgate, near my office when it happened. And everybody, there was a shot, that area was shut down.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, some of the terrorists were killed, and then some were arrested, and then, of course, they confessed to being elements of Al-Shabaab that were in Nairobi. And the government was down on them. Here, we have this tendency to self-denial. If you remember very well, when the Chibok girls happened, it took time before the government agreed that there was a kidnap. Yeah. Because when it first came out, everybody thought maybe they are playing political games, And then later, by the time they realized it, the girls were far away from their homes. Okay. And of course, you mentioned about Bade and stuff like that. That's why we're saying that Nigeria should start thinking seriously about the security architecture in this country. Because you have a lot of ungoverned spaces where you don't have law enforcement cover in the area.
Those areas.
If you have to even call 911 or our 767 before you will get a policeman or a team of police to come to that place, it will take you hours. So that is the major issue. So we have to restructure. If we have to go into getting state police, or we have to go into get neighborhood watches, they could do, because they will be around the area. It covers those areas.
So in your opinion, do you think that INEC will be able to conduct free, fair, and credible elections given these security issues? Only yesterday in Abia State, about 15,000 PVCs were burnt, plus the register as well. What are we looking at here?
Well, you are looking at a situation where, you see, I get worried when some people will voice the idea that the elections might be postponed.
Okay.
Some people have said that. Because of certain security issues that we had. 2014, it was also postponed for 2 weeks,
Okay.
you know, to remove the Boko Haram people that were occupying some local governments. Right now, if you observe very well, we have a heightened, attacks. As the election draw near, we're having the heightened attacks that are coming in. So I think the security agencies have to really, taking into consideration these security threats, restructure their security plan, And I know they have the capability to do that. They do. Let's say they should also have the political will to do it, But I know they have the capability to do it, carry out a free and fair election.
Well, looking at the two major political parties in this election, the APC and the PDP, unlike in 2015 where we had the Christian Southern candidate versus a Muslim Northern candidate, which had the propensity of internal communal clashes. This time around, we have both major candidates from the same region and from the same religion. I mean, that perhaps changes the prospect of having internal communal clashes. But what sort of violence? I mean, you have said we have the tendencies of seeing post-election violence. But what form of violence may we be looking at this time around? If any, pre, during, and post.
Okay. Right now, the elections, the campaigns are going on. You will have some thugs who are so motivated to go ahead and cause problems on the way, mainly tearing of posters and burning of buses and stuff like that. We've not had much of that yet. During the elections, I'm very, very sure that day is going to be really quiet. Okay. Because it has always been quiet, over the years. For all the elections that I've monitored, I think the election days have always been quiet.
But there are some very peculiar states, for
yes,
instance, Rivers State.
There are some peculiar places, but generally, if you look at it, it's a quiet day.
Fortunately,
yes.
this time, Rivers State doesn't have too many...
They don't have opposition.
Opposition, so...
But again, that also presents a problem.
Okay.
If Rivers State does not have an opposition.
A major opposition.
A major opposition, because there's another party, a court party that is there. But, the problem, and the security problem I can foresee is those who are not able to participate.
Disenfranchised.
Yes. Go out and start to discuss problems. So the security agencies are supposed to focus on that. The best way to do it, on election day, there are no movements, where all movements are restricted. The security agencies should enforce it to the teeth, whereby nobody moves. You go out, walk down to the polling booth, vote, come back to your house. Nobody is moving around in vehicles and stuff like that. If they do that, I think they can nip this in the bud. But if they allow people, and if they see you out there, they should arrest you immediately. If they do that, they can, have a headway. So after the elections, you have some people that are either lost and they want to create havoc because they've lost. But like you said, the two candidates are all Northern Fulani candidates. And that is fine. It even makes it better because it's the same kind of, because you see, in our politics, we use a lot of religion and ethnicity in campaigning. It has been part of us. And as long as we can play down on those things, it is okay. So where you see two people from the same place, I think it's better for the country. Yes.
And in arresting security challenges, intelligence gathering is paramount. How much of that do you think our security operatives get to do?
they are preoccupied doing that on a 24/7, basis, and especially the State Security Service. That's what they do. They don't do any other thing. That's what they do. They gather information, they change it, they process it into intelligence, and then they give it to the consumers of those intelligence.
Do they react to it? Do they respond?
They have to, because the intelligence that is useful is supposed to be what we call an actionable intelligence. Intelligence is supposed to be timely and on the right time. You give it to the right person. So it must be actionable. If a piece of intelligence is late, then it becomes useless. You can use it again. So, and these agencies are preoccupied doing the. So, we believe that they will supply. But again, there is a lacuna to it. If intelligence is supplied to you, for instance, you are the president or the governor or somebody, and I got some intelligence and I give it to you, it now depends on you to use it or not.
Well, we've seen a new Inspector General of Police, and we've seen him taking some action since he got into office. And we know that the police is the primary security agency to secure the elections.
Yes.
Are you confident with the process you've seen so far, change of leadership and actions taken by the police?
Yeah, well, first of all, it was by popular demand. People were tired of the former IG. And, oh, yeah, he must go, he must go. Oh, he has retired. Why is he still there? And he left. And you brought a new man. The new guy has been taking one or two very, very important steps, For instance, the changing of the spokesman. He has brought out somebody who is seasoned, who understands the terrain, to take over that, and he has done some postings and stuff like that.
Or reversals?
Yeah, because other postings might be for certain reasons or objectives. Now, it behoves on him as a new IG, because when anybody comes in new, and it's good the time he came in, any new IG is there to either prove himself that he is the new sheriff on the block, and he wants to prove that he can do the job. So we believe that with that kind of gusto, he will be able to do it, do certain things. People are looking at him very well, whether it's going to be partial or it's going to be dancing to the tune of the piper. And then he too knows that, and then he might want to be careful so that people don't point the finger at him and say, oh, okay, that's why you came. So I think it's okay. He's a professional. The first press conference that he held, he actually said that he's a professional and he's coming there as a professional to handle the job ahead of him, which is the elections. Yeah.
All right.
Well, all right. Thank you so much for joining us on this segment, Mr. Dennis.
Thank you very much
for
having me.
Very insightful to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Dennis Amachree, security expert, former assistant director, SSS. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.